Hello, dear students of BSc Year 2. I welcome you to this course of Research Methods 2. By taking this course, it is assumed, or it is in order that you have done Research Methods 1. So we assume that this is not the first time you will be experiencing research methods. However, that being said, that doesn't mean that we won't cover some basic concepts, just to remind us about research methods. So I welcome you once again, and I hope that we shall have a good interaction, both online and face-to-face. So I'm going to start with introductions. My name is Sheba Nyakaisiki. I'm a faculty lecturer, specifically attached to the Faculty of Science. And on this slide, we have my academic credentials. I'm an IT profession, and I'm also a researcher. I'm not the best researcher, but I believe I do have some experience, and I hope that I can guide you in this course. So, as we start this course, every course unit you have expectations. You have expectations, I have expectations, the university has expectations. Now, briefly, this slide introduces to you basic expectations or expected learning outcomes for this course. They're not set in stone. Please bear that in mind. I would like also at the end of that our first interaction that you let me know what you expect from this course unit. But in the most basic expectation is that you should have a research proposal by the end of this course unit. And for you to have a research proposal, you should be able to, number one, be able to identify a significant research problem. Now, take note of the words we use. We're talking about a research problem, not a problem, but a research problem. So this is where it is important that you remember what you were taught in the previous course unit of research methods and what we shall emphasize. So the key point is to understand that we are looking for a research problem. Now, with any problem, once you want to solve it, you must have an objective. You must have set activities. So you should be able to identify and clearly articulate your aims or objectives to solve the identified problem. If we were to use a layman's language, if we were to come back into the world we live in daily, if I have a problem, if let's say I have a temperature, my objective then is to get rid of that temperature or to bring my temperature back to normal. And then the next issue would then be, the next step would then be, what do I do? What do I need to do to bring down my temperature? That would be the method. So I would say the first thing maybe is get a wet cloth and place it on my head. Get Panadol. Panadol helps to bring down the temperature. Then also the other method would be go to a doctor to find out what is causing my temperature to rise, and then the doctor then to prescribe. That's another method. So in that example, I've given you three things. I've identified the problem, I have an objective, and then I have identified a method. Yeah, if I can just highlight this, I've identified a method. Yeah, so I have identified the problem, the objective or the aim, and the method. Now, when I go to the doctor, he's going to use certain techniques to find out what is causing my problem. he's going to, first of all, he or she, let me not say he alone, he or she will use maybe a thermometer to take my temperature. The doctor will then draw some blood from me to find out what could be the problem. So those are called data collection techniques. What the doctor is trying to do is to use certain techniques to discover what is the cause of my high temperature. Now, what I'm giving are not necessarily research techniques, but it's an example. So you will identify a problem in a specific area. You will identify an objective to resolve that problem. You will identify methods, and then you will also need to identify the techniques you will use to collect data, which data will then help you achieve your objective, which will then help you achieve your problem. And once you have collected that data, you must also have the appropriate analysis tools. You must be able to get this data and interpret it appropriately. So, what do I mean by appropriate? In each of these we have talked about, we have used the word appropriate. In each of them, we've used the word appropriate. What do we mean by appropriate? Well, imagine if the doctor, once he got my results, he or she gets my results, and then decides to give them to the nurse, or decides to give them to the hospital receptionist to interpret. That is using a wrong, and that's not an appropriate means, because the receptionist is not qualified. The nurse may have some qualifications, but not to the level of the doctor. So it is appropriate that the doctor analyzes based on the knowledge he or she received when he or she received their training. So that should be the appropriate. So you must have an appropriate technique to analyze the data. So we want to be able to pick those appropriate techniques. So for you to write your research proposal, you must have all these skills, the skills that we have pointed out. And that's what that is what we want to impart. We may learn so many things. There may be other things we may pick up at the end of this course unit. Maybe at the end of this course unit, you will say, I really don't like research. It's not for me. That will be something you learn, but ultimately you need to learn this for you to be able to pass this course unit. You may say, oh, I really didn't like that lecturer. Sheba Nyakaisiki, she's not a good lecturer. That may be something you pick out, but ultimately these ones are basic that you may pick out. You may decide you really don't like online learning. That may be something you pick out, but ultimately these are the basics. So we hope that we pick these, and we hope that they will help us to become academics. Because ultimately, once you are a graduate from a university, the main objective is that you become an academic. And for you to become an academic, you must pick up research skills. The skills that you learn from programming, from networking, those are skills as a profession, as an IT profession. But a university graduate must become an academic. Now you may say, why? What's the point? If I can program, if I can network, if I can set up a server, what is the point? Well, there are people who can program, who can network, who can set up a server, who can administer it without getting a degree. That is a fact. People like Bill Gates have become some of the greatest people in the world of information technology, in the world of ICT. Bill Gates doesn't have a degree, but you are pursuing something else, a different path from Bill Gates. It doesn't mean that you can't become as rich as Bill Gates. You can, but ultimately you are targeting to be an academic, and that's what the university aims to bring out of you. So Let's move straight into research. What is the definition of research? What is research? I'm sure you met this in your previous module, previous course unit of research methods, but it doesn't hurt to get back to it. There are many definitions. What you see here on this slide is the most basic and brings out the key points. The key points that I would like to bring to your attention is systematic. Research is systematic, meaning it follows a certain predefined process. It follows a certain predefined process. And that process must be followed for your research to be valid. For your research to be valid. Ultimately, when you're presenting your final work, your final book, and for you being IT students, your final application for your defense, if you have not followed the predefined process, you are most likely going to fail. So the systematic process must be followed. And this is one of the things that I hope we shall emphasize and that we shall all leave this course unit understanding clearly. That predefined systematic inquiry. So the systematic, when we say systematic, what do we mean? When we talk about a system, for example, a system has components. If you as IT students, you know, if anyone tells you about any system, you know it has components. If it is a software application or a software system, you know, if it's an information system, you know that it has certain components. You know it has a software part, you know it has a hardware part, you know it has an interface, you know it has a back end, you know all these things, and you know all these components. For them to be put together, you must follow a process. So also when we use the word systematic, that is what we are trying to emphasize, that there are certain predefined processes that or predefined rules and regulations that we must follow for us to say we are doing research. Now, this predefined process of systematic inquiry is there to investigate a specific problem. Now, we've come back to the word problem. And here I want to bring back to you the words we used in the previous slide, a research problem. So there's a specific problem. And once we get to that, we shall continuously bring it back, that there's a certain specific problem or issue, as the slide states. Now, at the end of it, what do we want to do? We want to bring forward new or improved knowledge. That is what we ultimately want to bring forward, new or improved knowledge. Now, as people who are being introduced to research, I'm assuming you're being introduced to research. Some of you may have done something, but one of the things I want to emphasize, this is what research entails. Now, as IT students, this may scare you. Don't be scared. The university knows that this is something that is being introduced to you for the first time, and you shouldn't be scared. The expectations are not as high for you as, for example, for a master's student, for a PhD. But ultimately, that's what research wants to do, to bring new or improved knowledge. Knowledge is the key point of research. You're bringing new or improved knowledge onto the table for other academics or other professionals to see and acknowledge this is new and improved knowledge. So why conduct research? For most of you, your objective is to attain that degree. That's your objective. You may not really understand why you need to do research. You simply want to get that degree and present to your parents, present to a potential employer, and say, I'm here, I'm ready to work for you. I have achieved this degree. That one it's also a good reason. It's a good reason. Please do not get me wrong. It's a good reason, and you should definitely keep that in mind. Keep that going as you carry out your research, because research can be can be a heavy burden. It can seem quite daunting, but keep that in mind. Now, but why do we want? It isn't just for purposes of the academic, as an academic objective to get that degree. One, it is to acquire new knowledge. And this for me, I believe, should be one of the key driving points to carry out any research. For you to do any kind of research, you want to acquire new knowledge. As students, sometimes, especially at bachelor's level, because I've been there, I know what it means. We may simply want to rush through something. Please don't do that. That would be my plea to you. Please don't do that. Take each learning opportunity as it comes. Research can be quite daunting, it can be scary, but take each step as a new learning step. It will help you in times to come. You will not always be a bachelor's student. After this, you're going to be a graduate, you're going to be an employee in some organization. At a certain point, you'll want to improve yourself further. That question will come, I need to get another degree to add on to what I have. And at master's level, it will even be more demanding. So it is a good idea to start now, desiring to acquire new knowledge. It could be knowledge in your research area. It could be new knowledge in research skills. So so I would take the second point really as an important part. Finding answers, like we said, research is about identifying a problem and setting forward a path, a certain objective, and saying, I'm going to use these methods to achieve this objective, to improve something. So finding answers to questions. Solve a problem in the practical world. Because that's essentially why academics are there, to solve problems. Sometimes, as we shall see, some research is not necessarily there to solve problems, but essentially that's the purpose of research being done. Enhancing critical skills, our ability to think, to look at something, to look at certain facts, a certain situation, thinking about it clearly, and then communicating it to the world. A key point is that we have to be objective as we put things forward. When we are thinking critically about something, our emotions definitely come in. Our biases, our prejudices will come in. But it is important as academics to pull back our emotions and look at something critically. We also answer the what if questions, because that's what research is about. It's about shaking things up and saying, what if we introduce this into the equation? Will we still believe things the way they are? That's what science does, because that's what research is. It's basically science. Now, in solving problems, we essentially want to improve the well-being of others. So that's the noble cause of research. That's the noble cause of research. It is essentially there to say we are solving a problem, and ultimately it's going to bring about an improvement in our knowledge, in our thinking, and in the thinking of others. In the more academic sense, we want to prove or disprove a hypothesis. So here we have an example where we say, girls hate mathematics. Is that true? Is that necessarily a true statement? In a more research-focused way, there are certain hypotheses that exist. For example, there's a hypothesis that says women will use technology if they find it easy to use, and men will adopt technology if they find it useful. So you can even say, and that's actually that's actually a theory that exists. It's called the term theory, technology adoption model. And it says so, but is that necessarily true? You may say, I'm going to prove or disprove this. You may want to prove or disprove a mathematical theory like what we see here. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. You may want to prove or disprove that. That may be research objective. So we have defined research, we have talked about why we do research, so what is good research? And this is, of course, a key question. It's a key question because as you're doing research, you will butt heads with your supervisor. Your supervisor will tell you do this, then you say no, I want to do this. I don't want to change this. In the back of your head, you must also understand what is good research. So the first key point is when we came to the definition where we say you must be following a systematic process. There are certain predefined rules and regulations concerning research. So one, if you're following those predefined rules and regulations, and that's the purpose of your supervisor. The supervisor is there to ensure that you follow that systematic process. So two is if your research is bringing forward something new or some kind of improvement. Here we have on this slide, we have an example of MTN. Many of the things we see happening in the marketplace, or rather in the industry, we may assume it's just sheer luck, people are just good at it, but most of these big multinational organizations actually have a research and development unit, and their job is simply to bring forward to the company areas that can really improve their market standing, can improve their products, and so on and so forth. So when you look at the example of MTN, how MTN's products have grown over the years. At one point, we had the Kabiriti, that very tiny phone, that featured phone. That featured phone came to the Katoch. Still another featured phone button. Then came the dual SIM. Yeah, that they were seeing what was MTN doing. MTN was looking at the market and seeing the behavior of users. They were studying the behavior of their clients, and they had to change with the behavior of their clients. That's essentially what has happened. Now we're moving into the area of information technology, of being connected, of social medias. You even now see low-cost smartphones, so that everybody can have that chance to go on WhatsApp, to go on Facebook, to go on Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok, and so on and so forth. Because that's what the market is. That's what the market is asking for. That is basically research and development that is coming in. So that bringing that improvement, bringing something new from what was previously known. Then it also directs to existing social problems. Take an example. There's a lot of research going on HIV/AIDS. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought in a lot of research. We've seen situations at Makerere where a rapid test kit has come out from Makerere. Makerere University has been participating in the development of vaccines together with Oxford University. That is all research. For a vaccine to come up, it's because of research. For us to understand COVID and how it is transmitted, that is research. So all of these basically should point out to you good research if it's coming in to resolve an existing problem. Good research must also consider the ethical and moral issues. When you're doing research, you're essentially studying people, studying certain situations in a society, certain situations in a context. There must be moral and ethical issues that exist. For example, asking permission from somebody to pick data, asking them permission that you may publish this data. So there are considerations, and your research must reflect. Your research must reflect what were the moral issues and how did you handle them. A good research also clearly states what is to be studied, what is to be examined. This is also another area which I know you will butt heads with your supervisor when it's not clear what exactly it is you're studying. And these are areas that you must go back to all over and over again. In my experience as a supervisor, what I see is a student wants to rush. And this isn't just for you. I've also done it myself because I'm also a student. I've been a student and I'm still a student. There are points when you just want to rush. I want to publish this thing. I want to write this book and quickly get my degree and so on and so forth. And you forget that maybe your research is not clear. You've not clearly pointed out your research problem. You're not clear about what it is you're researching, what it is you're going to examine. This must be clear. Then your research must not be biased. Now, this one is very difficult to achieve as human beings, because as human beings, we have our inclinations, we have our pride, we have things that we want, we have our will that we want to push forward. What do we mean by a biased position? Take an example of us IT students, IT professionals. We produce things. For myself, I'm inclined towards software development. So if you develop something, you're proud of it and you want others to look at it and say, wow, Sheba has done a good job. But imagine when you develop something for a client and the client says, I don't like this thing. I don't like its look. I don't like its functionality. How do you feel? Of course, you feel bad. But essentially, you're developing something for somebody else, not for yourself. It's for somebody else. So that person will definitely say this thing is not good. When it comes to research, especially for IT, you'll be producing something. That something may not be accepted, may not suit the context in which you're researching. And you must be brave enough to acknowledge where you missed something. So that unbiased position is really important. Research will also have multiple answers. You may be expecting one answer. When you go to the field to do your research, you find another answer. Be ready to take on those answers and reflect them in your research. So what research is not? What definitely is not research? As much as we've looked at the previous slides, we've looked at what research is, and this may be a lot to take in. It's also important we understand what research is not. One, plagiarized work. What is plagiarized work? At the end, you are number one. At the end of this course, you need to expect it to have a research proposal. That means writing. For many of us, even myself, I don't like writing. Writing means that I think, and I'm not interested in thinking. I want to do other things. I want to go and watch TV. I want to go and have a conversation with my friends and my family. I want to listen to good music. I want to do other things, not necessarily think. So it may be easier for me to go look at what somebody else, oh, I want to say this thing, this person phrased it well, let me copy and paste. And not even acknowledge that the other person wrote it. That is plagiarizing other people's work. Falsifying data. You may say, I really don't want to go. I want to build a website for this school. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I'm not going to go there. I'm just going to forge that the headmaster said this, the student said this, and yet you didn't actually go there. That is a complete no-no in research. Complete no-no. And it can embarrass you at a certain point. Misinterpreting information and misleading participants. So when you're carrying out your data analysis, again, listen to your supervisors. Your supervisors will help to guide you where you may misinterpret information. Referencing. Getting adequate references. Again, it's It's one of the things we don't like doing, myself included. Reading is one of the things we don't like doing. But it is important that we understand that we have to read widely in order to do research. What problems will you encounter? One, insufficient or lack of insufficient literature, because your research must sit on other people's work. And it is important that you have access to this. In Africa, sometimes because most of our universities we don't have access to the most up-to-date information. But however, the library department is very, very helpful. The library department in UMU is very helpful. In situations where you can't access certain articles, contact the library. They will help you. Inadequate data. This is a problem, especially if you go to someone who doesn't want to release information. Inadequate funding. This one is a must. It exists. We simply have to work within the limits we have. Lack of trust, especially if the people you're sourcing information from don't know you. That's number one. Two, if you're researching a sensitive area, take an example. If you're going to research salaries of maybe staff members of a certain company, I don't want to tell you my salary. That is one important thing. I don't want to tell you my salary, so I may not really divulge that kind of information. The time and effort that research demands from us, and this can be a problem, and it can tempt us to say, I'm going to falsify this data, I'm going to copy and paste from this thing because I simply don't have the time. This is a key point, and please bear in mind that you must make the time and the effort. Now, coming to the end of our first recording, I would like to bring forward to you the following discussion points that we shall have on Zoom using Padlet. Think about the research that you're going to participate in, the research that you're going to carry out, essentially. What challenges do you expect to encounter? Because those challenges will exist. And then how will you overcome these challenges? It is important that we understand the hurdles that we're going to face. We don't have any option. We're going to face them. That is a fact. But we can prepare for them. We can prepare for them mentally and physically. We can prepare for them, and we can devise strategies that will overcome them. We don't want anything to stop us getting that degree at the end of the day and getting that good mark. Those are two important points. I know those are important points. But also for me as a researcher, I'm hoping that at the end of it, you also come to have a love and appreciation for research in general. Your bachelor's degree program is not the end of your research. You continue with it, and you will find these skills even assist you in other things that are not necessarily academic related. So I thank you for listening to me. There is a recording coming after this one to teach us types of research. Please also listen to that. Thank you once again.